So how do you create a successful startup presentation? This is a question I frequently get from entrepreneurs that are seeking financing for their companies. Success in this case, of course, is getting your company financed. In my experience, it's essential that you complete a strategic planning process prior to creating your pitch deck. Even if it's only a 1-month process, it will be one of the best investments of time that you've ever made. A solid strategic planning process will give you a good understanding of your target market, the size and the growth, a clear understanding of the needs and desires of your target customers, and an appreciation for the industry structure and competitive landscape. In a great investor presentation, you'll need to clearly articulate your product's unique value proposition and its sustainable competitive advantage. You should be able to do this succinctly. You need to clearly describe your business model, how you'll make money, and how you will win. A lot of entrepreneurs will use uncertainty or a lack of time as an excuse to avoid the process of planning. This is a huge mistake. Without a clear plan and a stated set of assumptions, you might as well do shadow puppets in front of the prospective investors. As Yogi Berra says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. It's also critically important that you know your audience. Do your homework on the audience. Who will you be meeting with? Study their backgrounds. In some cases, you may play to their vanity, but don't overdo it. You're an expert in your field. You have every right to be at the meeting just as they do. When preparing the presentation materials, keep in mind that most investors don't have the domain knowledge or expertise that you have. And even if they do, it's best to describe things in layman's terms. If the investor wants to go deep, then you can go just as deep as they want. Just don't start there. Many entrepreneurs make the mistake of talking about their product for 90% of the presentation. Don't do that. Investors want you to spend about 80% of the time on the business and maybe 20% of the time on your product or service or technology. When architecting your pitch deck, don't try to recreate the wheel. Investors want information in a clear and unambiguous way. They want to get the information in a familiar structure so they can focus on the content of the presentation. Like any presentation, an investor pitch has a beginning, a middle, and an end. As the old saying goes, tell them what you're going to say it, and then summarize it at the end. Have 2 or 3 key points that you want to convey. In creating a pitch, it's important to think about content and flow. The content should come from your business plan. The flow should be standard and cover all the things that an investor needs to see and hear before making a decision to invest. So what should you include? First, a mission statement, which should explain what the business is all about. Next, include a company description, including a short statement that conveys where your business was formed, the names of the founders and their roles, number of employees, and business locations. Include a short bio on the key people. It's okay to put this information at the end of the presentation unless you feel you need it early to establish credibility. Include the growth highlights of your business, including examples of company growth such as financial or market highlights. Graphs and charts are great and very helpful in this section. Give a description of your products and services. Include important financial information, including your projected revenues and expenses. If you're seeking financing, include information about your current bank and investors and how much money you're trying to raise. Give a summary of your future plans, explains where you would like to take the business, and give some key milestones. The best way to start any presentation, including investor presentations, is by telling a story. Now you can tell a joke or a story that has no relevance to your topic, but it's far better to tell a story that's related directly to your business and your products. The idea is to create a visceral response in your audience so they can understand your unique proposition at a deep emotional level. It should convey the big picture of your business. As an example, at Entropic, we were doing products for multi-room DVR. One of the stories that I would give is, a guy is home watching the football game that's been pre-recorded. Maybe he's a Michigan fan, he's watching the Michigan-Ohio State game. And his wife and kids come home and they want to watch the last episode of The Bachelor. and it's an hour into it and they're both on the same DVR. Well, somebody's going to have to go to a different room, but unless you have that program recorded in every single room in the house, you have a problem. Multi-room DVR solves that problem. Your presentation should demonstrate your expertise and knowledge of your market, the customers, and the competitive landscape. Clearly state your assumptions near the beginning of the presentation. Demonstrate that you have done your homework and have a clear business model that makes sense. In terms of flow, make sure that you verbally link the slides. In other words, provide verbal transitions between each slide. As they say, let the slides be your guide. But don't just read the slides, rather use them as an outline to guide the discussion. This means simple rules like 4 bullets per slide. You don't have to have a hard and fast rule around that, but these are guidelines. Add something in the voiceover that adds to the slide. Don't be like a real estate agent that's showing a home and says, "This is the kitchen. I know what a kitchen looks like." Add some value. In your summary, have a call to action. What do you want from your audience? I doubt that you get them to write a check on the spot, but for specific follow-up actions, ask for them. Ask for next steps. Deliver your presentation with passion and energy. If you aren't excited about your business, nobody else will be. Demonstrate your knowledge and credibility. If you get an occasional question where you don't know the answer, then commit to follow up with a specific time frame. This is an opportunity for another touch point with the investor. Under no circumstances should you lie or make stuff up. So how do you deal with disruptions? Some folks may try to derail your presentation. Deal with interruptions by answering the question in a succinct way and continue with the presentation. If you plan to cover all the questions in more detail, let the audience know that you'll cover it. Use humor in an appropriate way to diffuse tense situations, but only if it makes sense. In my experience, the best way to deal with difficult situations is to practice with a simulated hostile audience before your presentation. Football teams practice and fighter pilots use simulators. Why shouldn't you do the same thing? I'm not a proponent of sending slides to the audience days in advance of a meeting. Use your executive summary for that. I do advocate giving handouts at the beginning of the meeting. This is because I want people to be able to take notes and not all the information is on the slides. There is always a concern about people looking ahead. Don't worry about it. If you've used a consistent flow, then you'll see that, it's a good slide, then you'll have an outline of what they're going to talk about. If you're super uncomfortable handing out your slides, then it's not a hard requirement to do so. In my opinion, it's the presenter's job to bring the slides to life. I think it's common, especially with technical people, to include every single detail on their slides. It makes them harder to read, and it leaves less opportunity for the presenter to bring things up and bring things to life. Many presenters just end up reading their slides. Don't do that. If the presentation went well, then you should have questions at the end. Be prepared for this. Before the presentation, prepare a list of frequently asked questions, or FAQs. Practice the Q&A in advance. Again, use a hostile audience that's willing to play devil's advocate in your practice sessions. To summarize, do your homework. Have a business plan. Tell a big picture story. Clearly articulate the problem you're solving and why it's important. Describe your solution. What is your unique value proposition and sustainable competitive advantage? How big is the market? How fast is it growing? How does your business make money? Tell them what you're asking for. If you have further questions about how to prepare for an investor presentation or other topics related to entrepreneurship, be sure to contact me. My job is to provide strategic guidance to entrepreneurs. I hope you found this helpful. This is Patrick Henry, the CEO of Quest Fusion, with The Real Deal: What Matters.